The moment I received the diagnosis of a terminal disease, I discovered my partner's journal. Ethan was gradually changing, becoming unrecognizable. Should I end our relationship? It was then I understood that I was merely a replaceable figure in her life. Eventually, I lost the desire to live and found myself confined to the hospital, enduring futile treatments. My partner wept bitterly, pleading with me not to succumb to death. One day, I staggered out of the hospital, yearning nothing more than to embrace Sophia and let my emotions flow freely. She was the most important person in my life, and I couldn't fathom how she would react to my condition. After searching everywhere, I couldn't locate her. I sat at the table in a daze, repeatedly reading the diagnosis report, desperately seeking any hint of hope. The word stomach cancer continued to burn my eyes, and tears streamed down my face. I hurriedly wiped them away, only to notice Sophia's notebook left open on the table. It seemed she had forgotten to close it after writing. I wanted to shut it for her, but then saw my name on the last line. Ethan is becoming less and less like him. Should I break up with him? I checked the date. It was today. Confusion overwhelmed me. Who was he? Flipping through the diary, I saw the story of Sophia and me falling in love. But almost every page mentioned him until a photograph slipped out. I froze. The photo depicted a man who resembled me about 70%. On the back were neatly written words, "Eternal Love, Michael Carter." The name rang a bell. Sophia's first love. Memories I had long suppressed flooded my mind, leaving me shaken and trembling. It became clear that in Sophia's heart, I was just a placeholder for her first love. Before I could process this revelation, the sound of the door opening caught my attention. Sophia appeared to be on the phone, her face showing a flirtatious expression I hadn't seen in a long time. Upon noticing me, she hesitated, her smile instantly fading. She covered the phone and frowned at me. "Why are you back?" she asked. At that time, I was usually working late at the office, striving to build a better life for her and planning a grand marriage. I had poured my energy into my job, only to end up with a failing body and a hollow heart. Clutching the diagnosis report, I mustered a hoarse voice and said, "Sophia, we need to break up." The room went silent. Sophia likely never expected me to suggest ending things, but before she could respond, the phone rang loudly. Michael's urgent voice came through. "Ethan, come quickly. I've been in a car accident." "What? I'm on my way," I replied hastily. Sophia rushed out without changing her slippers, turning to leave but paused at the last moment. She glanced at me quickly and left a message. "Let's talk when I get back." "Ha, waiting for you?" Impossible. I gathered a few personal items and left, but shortly after, the pain overwhelmed me and I collapsed by the roadside. When I regained consciousness, a kind stranger had taken me to the hospital. The emergency room was chaotic and I was still receiving treatment. A considerate doctor pulled the curtain around my bed. Soon after, another patient was brought in next to me, and the voice sounded eerily familiar. "Michael, are you okay?" it asked. "Don't scare me," I responded. "You must be fine," was Sophia's voice, filled with sorrow and genuine emotion. Even the doctor seemed puzzled. "Miss, your boyfriend only has a fractured finger. It's nothing serious. You don't need to be this upset." Sophia appeared stunned and whispered, "I'm not." "Thank you, doctor." Michael chuckled, and the doctor teased him. "Look at how much your girlfriend cares about you. It's hard to find such a good girl these days. Marry her soon after you leave." "Ollie is indeed a good girl. Whoever marries her is lucky," Michael continued. "What are you talking about? I'll handle your admission," Sophia scolded, blushing as she hurried away. With the doctor called away, the hospital returned to quietness. I lay on the bed, watching the cold medicine drip into my veins, feeling as though I had plunged into an ice cellar, my body growing colder. I couldn't resist removing the needle, wanting to leave. At that moment, the phone next door rang again, and Michael's voice echoed once more. "Hello, I told you not to bother me anymore. What does your problem have to do with me? Who knows if it's even my child? Just die. If you want to, stay away. You've slept with me a few times. And you really think you're a princess? At best, you can be a karaoke princess. Michael hung up irritably, but the phone rang again seconds later. This time, his tone changed entirely. Hello, Kevin. Don't worry, I'll repay the money soon. This time, the girl I found is prettier than before. You can have a go with her as long as you lower the interest a bit. Before he could finish, I couldn't take it anymore. I violently pulled open the curtain, punching him repeatedly. Screw you, I shouted, unleashing a fury born from feeling like a substitute and anger toward Sophia for being oblivious. Sophia arrived, pulling me away. Ethan, stop it, she pleaded as papers scattered around us, the scene turning chaotic. I looked at her with bloodshot eyes, words stuck on my lips, not knowing where to begin. Sophia's gaze shifted from shock to suspicion. Ethan, were you following me? I stood there, stunned, never expecting her to accuse me. She seemed to believe she had guessed my thoughts and looked impatient. Sophia, I told you, we're just boyfriend and girlfriend. You have no right to interfere in my life. The intense pain from my stomach made me tremble, but I gritted my teeth and said, Your life is about accompanying other men to the hospital. I glanced pointedly at Michael, and Sophia became angry and humiliated by my insinuation. How can you be so dirty-minded? Can't I have male friends? Do I have to revolve around you all the time? Sophia shouted, appearing completely unfamiliar to me. I turned to leave, but Michael seized the moment to blackmail me. Hit me and think you can leave? I'm telling you, you must compensate me for the mental damage, or I'll call the police and charge you with intentional assault. I sneered, and before I could respond, Sophia urgently intervened. Just give him the money. It's better than going to jail. She grabbed my sleeve, pretending to be concerned. Ethan, no matter what, you have to admit your mistake. Apologize to Michael and give him some money. This will be over, and Michael will forgive you for my sake. Michael. 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 It seemed she had forgotten the affection she once showed me. But that term of endearment no longer applied to me. Of course, I was just a substitute now. The original love had returned naturally. I had to step aside. I laughed bitterly, shook off her hand, straightened my clothes, and looked around. My gaze settled on Sophia. No money, no life. You son of a... Michael wanted to stand and hit me, but stopped halfway, remembering Sophia was present. Sophia bit her lip and looked at Michael apologetically. Michael, let me talk to him, she said before pulling me downstairs. What do you mean? I asked. He and I are just friends. Why don't you believe me? The cold wind pierced through and my stomach churned again. I gritted my teeth and said, Do you believe that yourself? My expression was indifferent, no longer sparing her any face. I know everything, Michael. Ethan, your standards for finding a substitute are really strict. Even the names have to be similar. Why? Afraid of calling the wrong name in bed? Sophia responded. A slap landed hard on my face, filling my mouth with the taste of blood. Ethan, I never thought you were such a person. Michael is very important to me, and you have no right to insult us like this. Sophia was furious, pointing at me and then leaving without looking back. My ears buzzed, my mind spinning as I watched her back. Unable to hold on any longer, I collapsed to the ground. I passed out again, the frequent fainting and constant pain reminding me that my days were numbered. For a moment, I considered ending it all. I had nothing to hold on to anymore. An orphan since I was 3, after my parents died in a car accident. Raised by my grandmother, she was my only family, but she left me 3 years ago. I was lost, hopeless, and broken, forgetting even how to speak until Sophia appeared and saved me. She was gentle, like the sun melting my frozen heart. Despite having many admirers, she walked through the crowd to me. Back then, I had nothing, but she stayed with me without hesitation, even if it meant eating cheap boxed meals. I couldn't let her down, so I worked hard, dreaming of a warm home. I thought we were destined for happiness, but today, I realized I was just a joke from the beginning. I closed my eyes, believing it was all over, until a persistent voice called out to me like a waking child. Reluctantly, I opened my eyes to see a kind face. I was stunned. It was my grandmother. "Young man, what are you doing here? It's so cold. Get up and go home to sleep." She chattered, but I didn't hear her words. I held her tightly, repeating, "Grandma, Grandma, I miss you so much. Take me away, life is too hard. I have no home." Somehow she understood. "If you don't mind, come stay at my place, no charge. If you want to cry, just cry." "Poor child," she said, offering a warm hug and patting my back. "If you want to cry, cry. I have a place to go." I awakened to the smell of food, opening my eyes to a room filled with bright daylight and an almost unreal warmth. The room was simple but clean, with old yet charming furniture. Instinctively, I searched for the source of the aroma and saw my grandmother busy in the kitchen. Her silhouette overlapped with my childhood memories, softening my heart. I stood quietly until she finished cooking and finally noticed me. "Child, you're awake. Come and eat." She gestured with a dish in her hand, and I nodded silently. We ate in silence. Noticing I wasn't eating the chili peppers, she quietly replaced them with milder dishes. Before leaving, I took all the money in my bag and stuffed it into her hand. She initially refused, but paused when she saw a photo in my wallet. It was a picture of my grandmother when she was young, something I had found while sorting through her belongings. The photo was yellowed with age and was my only keepsake. My grandmother looked at it for a long time before softly calling out, "Sister?" The two short words made me doubt my ears, as I had never heard that my grandmother had any family. She explained that when my grandmother was young, she married someone far away. Due to slow communication and a turbulent society, they lost contact over time. Later, my grandmother also remarried and completely lost touch with her sister. I stood there, stunned. No wonder I felt an inexplicable closeness when I first saw her. Her presence always reminded me of my grandmother. Perhaps she had guided me in the dark, fearing I would be too lonely. She sent her dearest sister to find me. Realizing this, I couldn't hold back anymore. I hugged my grandmother's sister and cried, my tears soaking her shoulder. I ended up staying at her house. Her life was simple, situated on the outskirts, and she made a living from her small vegetable garden. Every morning, she would take a small basket to sell vegetables. The produce was fresh and fairly priced. Everyone who bought from her knew her well, occasionally giving her some daily necessities. I accompanied her, feeling the mundane and ordinary warmth of human life. Until one day, upon returning from the garden, I heard shouting from the yard. "Old hag, where did you hide the money? Hand it over now." Dropping my basket, I grabbed a shovel and rushed in. I saw a man grabbing my grandmother by the collar, unable to move her. "Let go of her." I swung the shovel, making the men grimace and turn around. He froze, and so did I. It turned out to be Michael. "What are you doing here?" he demanded, frowning at me. "What does it matter to you? I'm not your grandmother, and I don't have a grandson like you. Get out of here. The further, the better." Before I could respond, my grandmother had recovered. She grabbed a broom from the corner and began chasing Michael away while scolding him. Covered in dust, Michael lost interest in me. With nowhere to retreat, he grabbed the broom and threw it aside, causing my grandmother to fall. "Old woman, I'm telling you, I'm the only grandson of the Carter family. What's yours is mine. Don't give me any nonsense. If you don't give me the money, I'll sell this old house." With those words, he lunged forward to search my grandmother's pockets. My anger boiled over, and I couldn't hold back any longer. I swung the shovel again, this time without restraint. Michael fell into the chicken droppings, crying out in pain. I planted the shovel firmly in the ground and stood protectively in front of my grandmother. "Are you leaving or not? If you don't, I'll make sure you can't leave today." The threat was clear. Michael, seeing my fierce expression, quickly lost his bravado. He awkwardly climbed up, chicken feathers sticking to his head, looking ridiculous. "Ethan Lee, don't think I'm scared of you. I'm telling you, if you have the guts, wait and see." He left those words before running away. I helped my grandmother up and guided her to the bamboo chair under the veranda. After catching her breath, she told me that Michael's parents had divorced when he was very young, and later they both remarried. So, Michael grew up as an unwanted child, raised solely by her. Unexpectedly, he repaid her kindness with betrayal, not only causing trouble but also coveting her only house. I finally believed that Michael was indeed my grandmother's grandson, which explained his resemblance to me. In fact, he was my cousin. I couldn't help but shake my head and laugh bitterly. Sophia was fortunate to reunite with long-lost family, but Michael's vengeful nature meant he wouldn't let this go easily. I advised my grandmother, "Grandma, come with me. I'll take you to the city." "No, I'm used to living here, and this old house was left by my late husband. I will guard it until I die." She shook her head in refusal, leaving me with a headache. Leaving wasn't an option, but staying posed a danger. Then I thought of someone who could help. I had an idea. As I expected, the next day, Michael brought his creditor to the door. At that time, I was busy making dumplings, plates of plump white dumplings spread all over the courtyard. Michael seemed surprised to see me still there. You still have the nerve to make dumplings." He snorted coldly, then turned obsequiously to the thug beside him. "Brother Kevin, that's him. He took all my grandmother's money and is stopping me from selling the house." "Don't worry. As long as you get rid of him, I'll sell the house immediately to pay off the debt." Michael looked so confident. I wondered what Sophia saw in him. I wiped the sweat from my forehead, ignoring them. "The guest I invited will be arriving soon." Brother Kevin, clearly annoyed by my indifference, barked, "Hey kid, which gang are you with? Don't you know to get over here when you see Brother Kevin?" I didn't respond immediately. I finished the last dumpling, washed my hands, and then turned around, pretending not to notice them. "Brother Kevin, never heard of you." I shook my head and wiped my hands. "Brother Wong will be here soon. I'd advise you to leave quickly." "Ha ha ha! Brother Wong? Do you think I'm afraid of him? You better tell them to bring more people." I shook my head and held up 2 fingers. "2 people will be enough." They looked at each other as if hearing a joke, then burst into laughter. "Ha ha ha! 2 people? What a big mouth." I didn't say anything, just smiled faintly. At that moment, a familiar voice came from the doorway. "Kevin Fan, it's you again. They're here." Everyone turned to look, and indeed, 2 policemen in uniform stood at the entrance. That's right, my backup was the police. Brother Wong was a regular customer of my grandmother, often buying vegetables from her stand after his night shifts. Over time, I had become familiar with him. A few days ago, I heard their unit was planning to purchase a batch of handmade dumplings, so I volunteered to take on the job. Today was the delivery day. Michael and the so-called Brother Kevin were dumbfounded. They were all taken away by Officer Chen on charges of fighting and causing trouble. Before getting into the police car, Michael looked at me with eyes full of hatred, almost to the point of madness. He never imagined I wouldn't confront him directly. When one's personal safety is threatened, seeking the protection of the police is the best choice. It's the 21st century. Does he still think violence solves everything? Ha! Ignorance. I went to the police station to give a statement and saw Sophia rushing in as I was coming out. As soon as she saw me, she went crazy and started clawing at me. "What did you do? How could Michael be detained? It must be your fault. Come with me now and explain to the police." I shook her hand off and spoke coldly. "Get a grip. It was him who came looking for trouble. He colluded with thugs to cause trouble. Sophia, your judgment is terrible." "Impossible. No way. Michael isn't like that." Sophia kept arguing. I didn't want to see her lose her mind, so I turned to leave. Just then, Officer Chen came out. "Are you Michael's relative? You came at the right time. We've just discovered that he's involved in several fraud cases and need your cooperation in the investigation." Officer Chen spoke lightly, but Sophia's eyes widened in disbelief. "How can this be? You must be mistaken. Michael couldn't be a fraud. He helped me before. He's always been a kind person." "Young lady, the facts are clear. Michael not only cheats people out of money but also exploits them emotionally. He targets those who once had a crush on him, taking money from those who have it and exploiting others sexually if they don't. He even forced some into prostitution. The evidence is undeniable. Fortunately, you haven't been with him for long. Turn back before it's too late. Hearing this, Sophia looked like a puppet whose strings had been cut, her shoulders slumping. How? How could this happen? She muttered to herself, seemingly losing her mind. I didn't want to deal with her anymore. In my final days, I just wanted to spend time with my grandmother and stay away from these messy situations. However, as I was about to leave, Sophia suddenly seemed to regain her senses and ran over to grab my hand. Ethan, where are you going? Why haven't you been home lately? Where are you staying? I shook her hand off, not wanting to be entangled with her for another second. Sophia, have some dignity. We're already broken up. Your Michael is where he belongs. Don't call me that. You don't deserve it. Break up. No, I don't agree. I admit I was confused for a while. Forgive me. I promise to live a good life without you from now on. I'll never cause trouble again. I sneered and slowly recited the words she had written in her diary. Ethan is becoming less and less like him. Should I break up with him? Sophia, didn't you already want to break up? Why pretend now? As I spoke, Sophia's face gradually turned pale and her grip on my hand weakened. She couldn't utter another word. She didn't know that because of my stomach cancer, I had lost 20 pounds and naturally looked less and less like Michael. She never truly cared about me. From beginning to end, in her heart, I was just an irrelevant substitute. Yet, I didn't feel sad at all because I no longer needed to beg for her love. In this world, I still had family. After returning home, I began to handle my assets, selling what needed to be sold and liquidating what needed to be liquidated. I realized I wanted to live. I wanted to take care of my grandmother until the end. Even if it was just for her, I shouldn't give up. So, I started actively receiving treatment, enduring the pain of various infusions and chemotherapy. My grandmother didn't ask anything, but I believed she knew everything because she would always make soups to nourish my body and snatch the hoe from my hands, telling me to go rest. It felt like I was back in my childhood, being cared for and loved. Those carefree days where my only concern was what to eat for lunch and whether the melons in the field had grown. Until Sophia found me again. At that time, a buyer had shown interest in my house, and the agent needed me to sign the contract. I went, only to discover that the buyer was Sophia's mother. I knew it. They were after my house. As soon as she saw me, she knelt down with a thud, begging for her daughter's forgiveness. Sophia followed behind her, head hung low, looking pitiful. I only felt disgusted. Sophia's mother had always looked down on me. When Sophia and I first got together, she constantly made things difficult for me, often mocking and ridiculing me. In the end, she despised my lack of money, thinking I wasn't good enough for Sophia. So I worked tirelessly, day and night, neglecting my health, and ultimately ended up with stomach cancer. She was the root cause of my illness, and now she had the nerve to beg for my forgiveness. I shook off her hand and turned to leave with a cold face, but she clung to my pants leg, not letting go. Ethan, don't leave. Sophia knows she was wrong. She regrets it deeply. She was momentarily misguided, deceived by that scoundrel. Her words made me want to laugh. If Sophia had no such inclinations, how could she be easily deceived? Moreover, she was just worried about losing a sure thing. After all, we were already discussing marriage. This house was my inheritance from my parents, and since we weren't married, she had no claim to it. She was just being spiteful. Did she think she could play the emotional card and get my house for free? I tried to pull my leg away, but the old lady was surprisingly strong and I couldn't shake her off. Let go, I won't say it again, I shouted angrily, and the old lady froze, probably not expecting my patience with them to have run out. But she still didn't loosen her grip, continuously signaling Sophia with her eyes. Sophia, with red eyes, finally stepped forward to explain. Ethan, I'm sorry. This was all my fault, but nothing happened between Michael and me. I still love you. I don't want to break up. Please don't leave me. Does she take me for a fool? I couldn't take it anymore and kicked her mother away. She fell to the ground, crying out, but I felt no sympathy, just a desire to end this quickly. Stop bothering me. I turned to leave, but Sophia clung to me again. Ethan, don't go. I really love you. I know I was wrong. In these past few days, I realized that Michael was just a youthful regret. These years, I've seen how good you've been to me. If you leave, I'll never find someone better than you. Before I could push her away, Sophia's mother scrambled up and started shouting, "Everyone come and see! This ungrateful scumbag is playing with a girl's feelings and now wants to leave. Is there no justice?" People gathered around, pointing and whispering, but most of them sided with me. Didn't I hear it was the girl who cheated first? Exactly. And now she has the nerve to cause trouble. Looks like they couldn't get any money out of him, so they're making a scene. The crowd's comments made the old lady feel embarrassed. She had originally intended to ask for compensation, but now that it was exposed, she was too ashamed to say anything more. She dragged Sophia roughly, almost causing her to fall. Let him go. I don't believe you can't find someone else to marry without him. That loser thinks he's something special. I don't want anyone else. I only want him. Sophia tried to break free from her mother's grip, and the old lady slapped her in anger. The scene became chaotic, with the old lady cursing continuously. I no longer wanted to argue with them. Speaking any more words to such people was a waste. Sophia kept crying and pleading, but I just wanted to end it all. I was about to leave when I bumped into Officer Chen rushing in. He grabbed my hand with a serious, grave expression, and his words made my legs go weak. "Ethan, your grandmother is in trouble." Daniel had escaped. Officer Chen explained that Daniel took advantage of a medical visit to slip past the guards and escape. He initially went to find his parents, but they all refused to see him for various reasons. Heartbroken, Daniel returned to the old lady's house, hoping she would pay for his bail. When she refused, he accidentally killed her. The old lady was dead, killed by Daniel. When I arrived, the yard was awash with blood, and the old lady lay cold on the ground, still clutching the small persimmon I loved to eat. I stood there, stunned, unable to believe what I was seeing. Tears fell one by one, but I was completely unaware. Images of the old lady's smiles and laughter from recent times flashed before my eyes, each second feeling like an eternity. Police officers moved around me, some patting my shoulder, others looking at me with concern. Everything felt like it was in slow motion, and I had only one thought in my mind: a life for a life. Daniel didn't run far and was quickly captured. He was brought back by Officer Chen to the old lady's house to identify the crime scene. Before getting into the police car, he passed by me with a malicious smile on his lips. "Ethan, your woman was mine too, and your grandmother was mine as well. Since none of you wanted me, I destroyed them with my own hands. To tell you the truth, I have AIDS, and Sophia should be infected too. She won't live long either." I stood there without saying a word, quietly watching him, feeling a sense of detachment from life and death. Thinking I was devastated, he continued to provoke me. "How does it feel?" he taunted, angry and sad, but there was nothing I could do. "I've been caught and will face legal punishment. What can you do to me?" He laughed wildly, like a demon from hell, until a pair of scissors plunged into his heart. His eyes widened in disbelief as he looked at me. "Forgot to tell you, I'm not going to live either, so let's go to hell together." I whispered in his ear, driving the scissors deeper. Blood gushed from his mouth, and he staggered back a few steps. Everyone finally snapped out of their shock, and Officer Chen pulled me away. "Ethan, you're crazy. He was going to die anyway. Why throw your life away?" I knew, but I couldn't wait. Finally, I laughed in relief, stumbling to the old lady's side. I looked at her one last time, picked up the small persimmon from her hand, and took a bite. So sweet. Daniel was declared dead on the spot. After going to prison, I completely lost the will to live. My condition worsened rapidly, and Officer Chen helped me apply for medical parole. Seeing his hesitant expression, I smiled softly and told him, "I'm fine. I was just about to die." I knew I only had a few days left. Sophia somehow found out my hospital room and requested to see me. I woke up to see her sitting by my bedside, her eyes red from crying. "Ethan, you're awake. Are you okay?" I closed my eyes again, not responding. Her voice quivered with tears. "Why didn't you tell me? Why? It could have been managed if you had just sought treatment." "Managed for what? So I could be your substitute or get slapped by you again?" Sophia was stunned, trying to grab my hand. "Ethan, don't say that. I really know I was wrong. I pleaded with the court for leniency. Just don't die. Don't leave me alone." "It's too late." I opened my eyes, staring at her coldly. "Everything is too late, Sophia. From the moment you wrote that sentence in your diary, everything was too late. Once the bow is drawn, there is no turning back. There's no turning back. Let me give you some advice. Go get a health checkup. You know what you've done." Sophia stood up abruptly, nervously clutching her clothes. "What do you know?" I chuckled softly. "Don't you already have the answer?" She hastily grabbed her bag and turned to leave. I called after her, unable to hide my disdain. "Don't you already have the answer?" She flinched at my words, but didn't say anything else, quickly leaving the room. The world finally quieted down, and I drifted into a deep sleep. In my dream, my grandmother kindly beckoned to me, standing beside the old lady and many others. My parents and friends were all smiling at me. At that moment, I felt enveloped in happiness, as if I had ascended to heaven, my whole body light and airy. The sounds around me grew faint as I ran towards them. The world no longer mattered to me, and I had finally found my family, never to be separated again.